Hello everyone, let's have more news about the Lakers, but first don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Lakers news, Jeanie Buss was initially worried about hiring JJ Redick. Jeanie Buss has happily allowed the Los Angeles Lakers front office led by President of Basketball Operations Rob Pelinka to take charge of the basketball side of things in the organization. Buss is primarily responsible for the business end of the Lakers, so Pelinka has full autonomy to make moves that position the team to compete for a title. The Luka Doncic trade was a no-brainer considering his impact as a player and what it cost to get him, but Pelinka's done well with some of the other important decisions he's had to make. For example, Pelinka may have struck gold with head coach JJ Redick, who led Los Angeles to 50 wins and the third seed during the 2024-25 season. While Redick and the Lakers were quickly eliminated in the first round of the 2025 NBA playoffs, there is still a lot of confidence in his future on the sidelines. While the Redick hiring looks solid now, Buss admitted she was initially nervous about bringing in someone with no previous head coaching experience via Dave McMenamin of ESPN. "I was worried about hiring a rookie coach," Buss said. "This team is so important to this community, and to bring in a rookie coach that had no experience before, that was a big leap. But I knew that Redick and Pelinka would work well together, and I love watching the progress that they're making." Buss acknowledged she trusted Pelinka with the Redick hire, and it seems like the decision will pay off as Redick got buy-in from the locker room almost immediately. Players like LeBron James, Austin Reeves, and Doncic have all praised Redick for the job he's done so far, and there's reason to believe he'll be better come the 2025-26 campaign. The Lakers aren't necessarily afraid to take risks, and this has shown up time and time again in the storied franchise's history. Redick is the latest in a long line of gambles Los Angeles has made, and so far the returns have been encouraging. However, the real goal is a championship, and it'll be interesting to see if the head coach is able to deliver one to LA. Now let's go to another video. Don't forget to leave a like.
James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves actually work, and what are the Lakers going to do this summer in order to find out? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the LakersNation.com YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Busy summer, big summer for the Lakers as they try to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Joining me is Ron Gutterman. Ron, how are you doing? I know right now a lot of Lakers fans a little skeptical that LeBron, Austin, and Luka actually are going to work as a trio.
Yeah, I mean, it's after that playoff run, you get eliminated in 5 games and questions get asked about your team. This is what happens to every team who has a shorter than expected run.
Well, I think it's fair to say, like on paper, looking at those 3 guys together, there's some immediate concerns, and particularly the backcourt when you've got Luka and Austin together, but then when you pull the numbers and you look and see what actually happened when you had these guys on the floor, what was striking to me was that LeBron, Austin, and Luka as a trio was not as good as Luka and Austin together or Luka and LeBron together. Now, we should note that we have to take all these numbers with a grain of salt. This is a small sample size. I think the context matters, like who were they playing against in these games, which players were healthy, which were not, who were the lineups around these guys. There's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot more nuance to this. I don't take any of this as like gospel. This is simply what the Lakers are. If you put those 2 guys on and this guy off and all that, I think it's a small enough sample size to where we need to acknowledge that. But nonetheless, this is also not ideal when the team is not as good when you have the 3 of them on the floor together. Why do you think these numbers are coming out the way that they are?
Kind of the interesting thing to me is that it seems like, and you have a second post in this thread, right? That has
Yes.
more numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing all of these numbers and thinking, man, the Lakers are just really good when Luka Doncic is on the floor. Like Luka Doncic is just really good, which obviously is not news, but yeah, I mean,
look at this. Luka, now again, it's a small sample size, 331 possessions, but Luka by himself plus 18.6. No LeBron, no Austin. Meanwhile, Luka, the best combination with Luka and anyone was Luka and Austin plus 18.8, which is 0.2 better than Luka by himself. But again, the context certainly matters in those situations.
Right. And context matters a ton, because if you look at these numbers, you would actually say LeBron is the problem
Right.
And I think anyone who watched Lakers basketball from February on would not have said LeBron is the problem. Like, that's not meeting the eye test, really. And so I think there's just more of a sample size that needs to happen to really figure out what's going on there. I think the concerns about Luka, LeBron, and Austin's fit for a full season are completely valid. I think it does lower the margin for error for the Lakers to be able to build a championship roster. But I think the Lakers can build a championship roster around those three. And this is kind of your shot to do it because you have to make a pretty big decision about Austin Reeves pretty soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Eric Pincus noted just the other day, yesterday, in fact, that, and not a surprise, but that Austin is expected to decline any type of extension that the Lakers would give him, which would be roughly 4 years, 90 million would be the most that they could give him. It's like 89 and change what they could give Austin Reeves, which then puts the Lakers in a difficult spot. Like if Austin winds up going into next summer as a free agent and getting, say, 30 million. Look, he put up what, 25-5 or 25-6, something like, I mean, over 20 points per game, pretty solid efficiency. Like the numbers would tell you he's probably worth that much money. But is he worth it if it doesn't work with him and Luka in a backcourt? That's where the Lakers might have to make a difficult decision and maybe look to make a trade. So again, when we look at this, though, we see Luka and Austin as a duo actually worked really well. And that's without even having like a rim protecting big, which is, I think, the key piece that everybody is talking about that the Lakers certainly need and an important ingredient to make Luka and Austin work, Luka, LeBron and Austin work. Any of these guys, you need somebody to help protect at the rim because there's not enough perimeter defense there. But we saw these positive numbers with Luka and Austin together. Does that give you more optimism in a perhaps post LeBron future that Luka and Austin can work? Or is this just small sample size making it look better than it actually is?
Yeah, I'm worried it's more small sample size. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that Reeves can be the second star post LeBron, like kind of be the replacement for LeBron in that post era. I do think Reeves, to me, is kind of, he can be a third option on a championship team. He can be the second option on a very, very good team, like a playoff, a second round type team. I kind of think that's where he's at, and he could improve. I'm not saying that's like his ceiling, he's done, but like that's kind of where he's at right now, which is he could be a championship third option or a really good team second option. And I think these on-off numbers, they're definitely interesting. They're not what I would have expected based on eye test and based on skill set. But I do think it's small sample size, and I don't really see the Lakers trading Austin Reeves this summer unless there's like a really crazy deal out there that exists. So I think we're going to get a bigger sample size to see kind of what's real and what isn't. And then the Lakers at the trade deadline may have to reevaluate. If the bigger sample size from October to January shows that, hey, Austin Reeves is kind of like defensively, Luka and Austin are not going to work. With LeBron, like this isn't going to work. You have then, that's your chance to kind of see what you can get for him. And if you can get a more defensive minded player, then maybe you have to make that choice. I think for now, they're going to roll it with these three, barring something crazy, and let the sample size expand.
Well, and we especially have to note if Austin, assuming he does not pick up that extension this summer, he could walk away for nothing in 2026. And that's got to give the Lakers a bit more motivation to move on from him. Although that may also give teams pause against trading for him because they'd also be worried about losing him in free agency. So it's a bit of a tricky situation there for the Lakers. But I do agree. I think what they're going to do this summer is they're going to try to answer the question, can these three guys work together? And then go from there. I think the Lakers will look at things and say, we haven't seen enough of the three of them together, and we haven't had a chance to really put the pieces around them that need to be there to have a truly optimized lineup and really give them a shot to click together. I mean, their best lineup, clearly the only lineup JJ Redick trusted, didn't have a center in it. It was LeBron. It was basically, you could look at it this way: four guys on the floor who were at their best, probably defending power forwards. And then Austin Reeves.
It was Austin Reeves and Luka's a point guard offensively, but defensively it was Austin Reeves and like 4 3-4s.
Yeah.
It's a really awkward lineup. And I will say that, the three of them together, there were a plus 1.3, which is obviously not ideal. Your
No,
three best players need to be better than a plus 1.3 together if you want to win a championship.
no.
But important context, like you say, the three of them never played with a really good center. The three of them never really, like, the best defender the three of them ever played with was Dorian Finney-Smith. And Dorian Finney-Smith is very good, don't get me wrong, but he's not getting any all defensive team, nods anytime soon. He's like a good defender, a even very good defender, but is not elite. So the fact that in 870 possessions, they were an above, a winning team with really a poorly optimized lineup around those three guys tells me that if they go out and get a really good center, if they go out and add a perimeter defender, that number could shoot up pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I'm not. That's not to be overly critical of Rob Pelinka here. He used the analogy that they were trying to build a plane while it was in the air. And he's not wrong, right? I mean, you couldn't have predicted the Luka trade was going to be there for them. So I thought the roster was already mismatched. It already wasn't truly optimized, particularly when you came into the season with D'Lo and Austin in the backcourt and everything. And then the Luka trade falls in your lap, and you wind up you pull that trigger because of course you do, right? That's not of course you make that trade. That's a trade you make 100 times out of 100, but you're going to wind up with a roster that's a little bit wonky. And I'll have people argue that, well, they should have done the Mark Williams deal. They should have gone through with it. We don't have eyes on the medicals. We don't know.
Right. We don't have eyes on the medicals. And also what we do have eyes on is basketball. And Mark Williams is a great player. And having a center would have been better than not having a center, of course. Sure. But Mark Williams is not some staunch rim protector.
No.
Never was. If you were getting Mark Williams, it was to optimize your offense and say, oh, we're going to be so good offensively that it almost doesn't matter that they're not a very good defensive team. That was the game plan by trading for Mark Williams. So I think if we're going back to the drawing board, it's now let's go. That trade didn't happen. And if the way to make it a blessing in disguise that didn't happen is you go out and get a center that can protect the rim.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what you need. And look, it was a tiny sample size, 101 possessions. But this is what I believe was the closest to a truly optimized lineup the Lakers had all season. Austin, Max Christie, DFS, LeBron, and Anthony Davis. They were plus 32.6. Again, a lot of noise in that. I'm not saying they were just dominant world beaters. 101 possessions is nothing, right? But I think it does kind of underscore what a truly optimized lineup can be and how important it is that the pieces fit, which again says Rob Pelinka's got his work cut out for him. He's got to find the pieces that truly fit alongside Austin, Luka, and LeBron. And if that doesn't work, that's when I think you can really come to the conclusion that three-man trio is not viable.
And the beauty of trading for Luka and why you do this trade every time is because if they nail it this offseason, if they hit all the marginal pieces, they get the center, they get perimeter defense, they get shoot, whatever, and you get to February and your team is still not a championship contender, like they're going to be very good pretty much regardless. But if you get to February and your team's still not a championship contender, you have very clean books next summer and you have a 27-year-old Luka Doncic. So at the end of the day, life is still good. And you will still have the opportunity to build a championship contending team around Luka Doncic in the very near future. So I think the Lakers kind of have this cool opportunity of take this offseason, really try to hit all the margins, build a championship contender. And if it still doesn't work, and you know for a fact this core three doesn't work, you only have to stick with it for this year. You could trade Austin at the deadline. LeBron is, probably there's a good chance this is his last year too. And you can start over with clean books and Luka Doncic.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's what we'd be looking at here for the Lakers. That's the kind of flexibility that they've got now. That is, of course, if they don't wind up using their first round pick or they have a limited amount of assets. So their future flexibility could be negatively impacted by going and getting, the center that they need this summer. If they can't use a taxpayer MLE of like $5.6 million to go get that guy, that's going to matter. What decisions they make will matter in terms of how much flexibility they're going to have moving into the future. But you're right. There is a clear pivot point already set up here for not this summer, but next summer for the Lakers if this truly isn't working. But, Ron, I do think I'm seeing a lot of commentary out there that simply, the Luka Austin backcourt doesn't work. And I think on paper, you look at it and there's reason. I think there's real reason to be concerned about it. And with Austin's contract situation, there's real reason. I believe the Lakers need to be more open to an Austin Reeves trade than they have ever been. Don't think they have to trade him, but they have to be more open to the possibility. I think they will go into the season, though, with those three guys together. They'll try to optimize the lineup around them and then make some decisions midseason if it's simply not working out. But I don't think the Lakers are quite at the point where some fans are at right now, where they can definitively say this does not work. But I think we have to admit that there's reason for some concern here.
Yeah, I think if you're trading Austin Reeves because you don't like how he played against Minnesota, then you're overreacting. But I think if you're saying, hey, it's time to trade Austin because of the contract situation, I think that's really the most valid thing is, do you want to be the one to pay Austin Reeves $30 million, which he's worth it. He deserves that type of contract. But if you already have Luka Doncic, do you want to be the one to pay Austin Reeves $30 million? And now $80 million a year is going to two non-defenders. Like that's the calculus.
In today's NBA, can you have two non-defenders on the floor?
Right. And like you're seeing it with the Knicks right now. Mm-hmm. Brunson and Cat together have been atrocious defensively in the Eastern Conference Finals. And it's showing, and the Pacers are dominating those minutes. And it's like, those are two amazing basketball players. But if you have two non-defenders on the floor in the NBA in 2024,
rating about the Lakers potentially trading for Kristaps Porzingis, which I want to start off by saying I sure hope not. Kristaps Porzingis, incredible talent, don't get me wrong. He's a guy that go get you buckets, spread the floor. I mean, on paper, he would be incredible for the Lakers, right? Guy that can spread the floor, knock down the three ball with consistency, protect the rim, right? Be a pick and pop guy for LeBron, right? Be a lob threat for Luka because he is so long and lengthy. He could just kind of get up there, he just slam it home, right? Like, ideally, he would be fantastic for the Lakers. My biggest problem with Kristaps Porzingis is he can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the court. The best ability is availability. And more than anything, can't stay on the court in the playoffs. And the guy was just having like a mystery, respiratory issue, which I don't think is a good thing for the Lakers to go take a risk or a chance on. And that's not counting how is Kristaps and Luka's relationship, right? There's still kind of questions and things left in the air about that, right? But even if there are great, even if Luka's yeah, sure, hey, Kristaps would be great, right? I personally want to see the Lakers stay away from Kristaps Porzingis. But there are, rumors going around and all kinds of predictions. And you have, Andy Bailey predicting that the Lakers are going to trade for Kristaps Porzingis. He proposed that Lakers would trade Rui Hachimura, Maxi Kleber, a 2030 first-round pick swap, and a 2032 first-round pick swap in an attempt to land Celtic center Kristaps Porzingis. And personally, again, I would stay away from that. On paper, sure, he makes a ton of sense. I get the idea. I get the logic that can be made from that. But I don't think the Lakers are in a position to take a risk on a guy that the Celtics won a championship essentially without him because he only played in half the games and he was limited in minutes in most of those games, or just played limited minutes or came off the bench or whatever because they couldn't make a run with him, right? I don't think that he's the best, allocation of our assets and money, right? Obviously it's, what's available, what can you realistically get, what isn't going to break the bank. I don't know if I'd give up 2 pick swaps, right? If you give up, say, a pick swap, maybe, right? If you were giving up, say a swap, a pick swap plus, matching salary, sure. Because he is going into a contract year. So, he's making $30.7 million next year, right? That's why Rui plus Maxi Kleber. I think you'd have to throw in another contract and it would have to be a third team. But you could throw in, if you had to, you could throw in a Shake Milton or something like that, because Shake Milton is on a non-guaranteed deal. So again, there's a path to Kristaps Porzingis. Don't get me wrong. And I get the logic. I get the understanding. He's still on the right side of 30, right? So, he's a guy that I do think if healthy, and he could give you 70 games, right? Let's say even just league average. Let's say just the minimum threshold, 65 games. If he was giving you 65 games plus, played every playoff game, was fully healthy come playoff time, sure. Like if I had a crystal ball and I could just, type thing, and boom, there it is, then sure, go get him, right? Because again, I do think that the potential and possibilities on the offensive side of things, as well as his ability to protect the rim, would be very valuable. Talk about a guy that can pick and pop, shoot the three ball with efficiency, operate in the mid-range, knock down the mid-range, right? Can be in that dunker spot for Luka and be that kind of lob threat for him. He's a guy that is incredibly versatile as far as offensive versatility goes at the big man position. Talk about a guy that's 7'2", he's got a 7'6" wingspan, 240, 250 pounds. You saw him at the 4 at times. You saw him at center at times, right? You saw Al Horford and him playing at times. So, if Lakers were to go get a Clint Capella, something like that, right? Like, my thing is just, like, yes, you can make an argument. If it works, great, right? Then you can work out a new deal and do whatever, right? I feel like he would more likely than not just kind of be a stopgap, right? Everything else fails. You're not able to trade for another center, or, the asking price and everything is too much for these other centers. And you look at a team like Boston, who's kind of like, we get a bunch of expiring contracts. Basically, we get a free pick swap for Kristaps Porzingis, right? Like, cool. Let's do that. Right? Because, Lakers, it's not like they're taking on salary or anything like that. Like Lakers would give, here's our expiring salary. We'll take your expiring salary. We'll give you a pick swap for your service. Right? So, Boston's looking at it as like, we get a free pick swap. Sure. But I would, like, is that worth it for the Lakers to take a flyer on a guy in Kristaps Porzingis? Maybe. Again, it depends on what else can the Lakers get, what else is available, what else is out there for them, right? Like, is Kristaps Porzingis on a stopgap year, is that better than, Nick Claxton and his, $75 million over the next 3 years? Is that better than, a Daniel Gafford? I'd probably rather go with Daniel Gafford, right? I think he's more reliable, kind of gives you what you need. Yeah, he's not as offensive versatile as a Kristaps Porzingis, but he still, gives you a lot, right? Like, again, if, like, let's say Gafford's off the table and it's just like Nick Claxton and Kristaps Porzingis, but like the Nets are like, we want a first for Nick Claxton, right? And it's like, okay, we can do a first for Nick Claxton, or we can do a pick swap for Kristaps Porzingis, kind of have him be a stopgap year and kind of take a flyer on him. Sure, maybe. Right? Again, it's not my favorite idea, but the problem is, you look at his career, the most games he's ever played in a season, is 72 games. That was his rookie season. His rookie year is the most he has ever played in a season. That was 72 games. Since then, he's played 66 games, 48 games, missed an entire season, 57 games, 43 games, 51 games, 34 games, 17 games, 51 games was the trade season, Dallas and Washington. So 51 games, 65 games, 57 games, 42 games. So if he could give you, like I said, 65 games, so if we could get like the final Washington year, right, where, he's giving you, which, by the way, they didn't make the playoffs. So if he give you the final Washington year, 65 games, and let's say play in the postseason, but he gives you 65 games, played 32.6 minutes per game, shot 50% from the floor, 38.5% on 5.5 attempts from three-point range, 56% from two-point range on 10.2 attempts, 56.5% EFG, shot 85.1% from the free throw line, 8.4 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, 1.5 blocks, and 23.2 points per game. If you could get that Washington Kristaps Porzingis, 65 games played, healthy come playoff time, kind of be hard to say no to that, right? Again, give you, 2 blocks a game. He'd have the easiest time he's ever had in his career playing alongside Luka and LeBron. The type of threes and shots that he's going to generate would be ridiculous. But I mean, you look at the last 2 years, it's like 57 games, 42 games. But you look at the playoffs, right? He played in 7 playoff games in 2023, 2024. And only played 23.6 minutes per game on average in those games. Because Boston won the championship, right? They play, like, you got to think he played in less than half of the games. He only started in 4 out of those 7 games, right? Like, and he only averaged 23.6 minutes per game because he couldn't play more. And then you look at this year. He played in 11 games, right? 7 games in which he started. So he again came out the bench 4 of those games and only played 21 minutes per game. Right? Like, he's unreliable. Right? You look at the years in Dallas, right? He played, 7 out of 7 of those games, started those games, 33.3 minutes per game, averaged only 13.1 points per game, right? Shot, 30% from 3-point range. You look at the first year in Dallas, 23.7 points per game, right? Shot 52.9% for 3. Like, if you got 2019, 2020, Kristaps Porzingis in the playoffs, perfect. Right? With the 2022, 2023 Washington Wizards, Kristaps Porzingis, where he's giving you 65 games, playing 30 minutes a game. Perfect. Right? Gives you 23 and 8, right? With 2 blocks and a steal, right? And you can get him for, say, a pick swap. Great. Right? I'd almost rather go with like a Nick Claxton, right? And then just like can you bring in like a Clint Capella or something like that? The thing is, I don't think the Lakers need like a super skilled center, right? I don't, because I just don't think that super skilled center is going to get the opportunities that you would want them to get, right? Obviously, I'd love to have it. If you get a Chris Hester, you get a Mark Williams or whatever. Sure, I'd love to have it, right? Like, it's better to have it and not need it than need and not have it, right? But I think, like, if you can just, all you really need is just like that.
New Los Angeles Lakers rumor may reveal likely big man trade target this summer. A new rumor reveals the Los Angeles Lakers attempted a trade for Atlanta Hawks big man Onyek Okongwu this season. Could he be at the top of their center wish list this summer? Even before the Lakers made a historic trade for Dallas Mavericks superstar Luka Doncic, there had been rumors about the organization's desire to find an impact player for the center spot. The deal only exacerbated that need for the rest of the season, and it is expected to be a priority for the front office this summer. Los Angeles did try to make a deal for a big after the Doncic trade, and they had agreed on a trade for Charlotte Hornets center Mark Williams. However, after reviewing his medicals, they rescinded the deal. But this week, ESPN NBA insider Dave McMenamin revealed on the Straight Fire with Jason McIntyre podcast that the team was working on a deal for a different player before Williams. Before the Mark Williams trade, and I can't tell you all the names on that list, but I actually assume he was one of the names on the list that Rob Pelinka presented to Luka, because I do know the Lakers made a call to the Hawks around the trade deadline about Okongwu, he said, HAT Lakers Nation. After landing in Los Angeles, GM Rob Pelinka and Doncic sat down in February and went over possible big men that could benefit from playing with him and vice versa, similar to how well he played with Daniel Gafford in Dallas the last season and a half. If the Lakers reached out about a potential deal, that means the young superstar gave his boss the thumbs up on a pursuit. It is unclear why a deal didn't materialize, but the 24-year-old is a fast-improving talent and may be the heir apparent to Clint Capella in Atlanta. It is why the team gave him a 4-year, $61.8 million contract extension before the season, so the Hawks won't give him up easily. So, is he a perfect fit for LA? McMenamin says yes and no. I think lob threat, athleticism, absolutely. In terms of being a perfect fit, maybe not. They might not get a perfect fit though, he added. Clint Capella of 17-18 might have been a perfect fit, but we're in 25-26 now. So that is kind of the spot they're going to be in. And you, fan, what do you think about Onyeka Okongwu situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.